Hey, Dave Duford here at DeFord Insurance Group. Today we're going to be talking about 7 steps to massive insurance sales success. And this is a training that is particularly designed for you newer agents out there who are brand new to the business and looking for guidance to optimize your long-term and short-term success in the business. But this training is also specifically developed for those of you, and there's a lot of you out there who are considering joining the insurance business, and you're looking for some proper perspective on how to maximize your ability for success as much as you can. And the reason I'm putting this particular video together is because, quite frankly, just like Mr. Cody Askin says, the 8% nation concept is very true. 90% plus, somewhere in that regards, or in that range, do fail out of selling insurance within the first year. And there's a lot of reasons why this happens. Maybe it's a wrong agency selection. Maybe the agent really isn't built for the business. Or perhaps there's a lot of other issues that weren't mitigated, like commissions, lead programs, certainly training, etc. There's a lot of variables in the business, but either way, what you don't want to become is a statistic in the business of the insurance of failing out. And so what I'm going to try to talk about today are really some high-level foundational principles to having success selling insurance. Why should you listen to me? I've been in the business since 2011. I have had great ups in the business and massive lows to the point where I failed out of the business in my first year. So a lot of this is coming from personal experience as an insurance agent focusing in the life business, specifically final expense. And this business is fantastically wonderful if you can just survive, if you can just apply the primary foundational principles of success. So my goal for you today is hopefully to give you the mindset, the proper perspective to give yourself massive levels of success today. Much of this business and where you end up, whether you fail or succeed, starts and ends right here in the head. So a lot of our talk today will be on the mindset and kind of how to approach this business. Also, straight talk on what it really takes to be successful and talk about what you have to sacrifice too. And then we'll talk about some foundational principles of running a successful sales business. And even though I'm a final expense agent, this is applicable really to any business. And no matter what it is that you sell, final expense, life insurance, health insurance, otherwise. And hopefully we'll end kind of with some perspective about what you're up against and what you can do to not become a statistic so that you can have massive success like the few who do. And many of those, as of course they will tell you, was absolutely worth all of the effort. So now, as you watch this, as we go into this, you're welcome to leave questions in the chat. So I usually spend the first half of the training. This might be longer today. We'll kind of see how long I ramble on with some of this stuff. But I do welcome your questions, comments, statements, critiques in the chat. I will get to all of them in a little while. They can be relevant to what it is that we're talking about. They can be something different related to insurance sales. I love taking these questions live. That's what makes this kind of training so fun. So please feel free to throw it out there. Hey, girl on Venus, Mark, Jess, how you doing? Thank you so much. Nice words. Appreciate it. Christine, Jackson, Deborah, Susie, good to see you, and Eric too. So let's get started. None of these are in any particular order, these 7 steps to massive success in the insurance business, but they're all equally important and need to be examined and considered as you get started and before you get started, especially before you get started. So let's jump right in and start covering these. So first of all, probably the biggest reason why so many fail out of the business is that so few actually slow down enough to take their time to really do their due diligence to see if A, the insurance business, whether or not to determine if it's right for them, and then B, if it is, to take the time to do their due diligence to make sure that the agency they're joining, the product that they'll be selling is a good fit for their personality and for their goals. Again, the life cycle of the failed agent, the agents, the percentage, the 90+% that failed out kind of looks like this. They're sick and tired of their job. They want to be in a business. They discover the insurance business by accident, or they know somebody who's successful into it, and they're brought in off of referral. They jump in and they just kind of follow what they're told because they don't understand. They don't know what they don't know. And they're promised a bunch of different things like, look at my Ferrari, look at my private airplane, look at this fat stack of cash. And they're like, well, that's cool. I want that too, understandably. But without all the context and substance to get to it, right? So they jump in and what was promised just ain't really delivered on that much. They realize this is kind of hard. And wait a minute, these leads suck. Or these commissions are terrible. Or wait a minute, I'm learning a lot, as many people find my channel, that I wasn't even told when I first joined. And many times, a lot of these people are too far gone. And not always, but a lot of times they realize what they came into wasn't what it actually is. And they leave the business understandably with a chip on their shoulder. It's a racket to sell leads. It's just garbage in, garbage out. People are just mass recruiting. They're not concerned about training. And they leave this business with this, opinion and belief it's a pyramid scheme. And that's sad. And this is always kind of why I've created this channel, is to provide as much information as humanly possible to hopefully, for the small percentage that come across it, that do think about doing some research, start to find this stuff, to maybe intercede before this cycle of life and death for the agent happens. So, the question is, how do I do that more? Well, I just got to do more videos. I think that's what it comes down to. But the point is, it's absolutely critical, ladies and gentlemen, if you're brand new, you're looking to get in this business, even if you've chosen your agency, you need to understand that this business is so awesome, it's so incredible, that it's absolutely worth your time and your patience to make sure that you find as much as possible, a perfect match for what it is that you're looking for, okay? Now, why is this important? Well, you're about to be married, right? And I hope you're like me. I like getting married for life, right? If we think about married forever and what the implications of that are, well, as best as I can, sometimes you can't know everything, of course, you want to know what you're getting into, right? You don't want to make the mistake of jumping in too soon to find out all these faults your partner had that you didn't know. And then you got to go through the ugly process of a divorce, right? So the better method is to slow things down. It's to do your due diligence. It's to take steps to make sure when you make that commitment, you want to think about this being the first commitment, being the last commitment you make. And guys, it's not always perfect like this, of course, I understand. Sometimes we start somewhere and then we jump because we did our best with what we got, and that's different. That's okay. But we want to think that way when we're in this business getting started. And that should cause you to pause and realize that you really have to take your time to make a decision, the best decision for your business. Because, again, the possibilities of this business as far as economic freedom, the potential to make serious six-figure money, and with the ability to incorporate a lifestyle that just isn't working like a dog constantly, is very real. And it's worth the investment and the time and the patience to find it. So, big picture, do your due diligence. Well, what can you do if you're a newer agent to follow through in this process to apply the idea of due diligence? So I'm going to give you a couple of tips here. So, number one, the best thing you can do is don't fall in love with your first date, okay? Don't jump in bed with the first agency you're with. Interview multiple agencies, okay? Now, notice what I said. I didn't say go interview with agencies. I said you interview those agencies. The implication being you're the one asking them questions. You're the one seeing if they and what they do is a good fit for you. That kind of sounds weird, right? You usually have to go to a job and they interview you and you put on your best show and blah, blah, blah. But in the insurance business, it's totally a 180, okay? Everybody's always looking for anybody with a pulse. So what's weird about this business is they actively try to recruit anybody, throw them into a process as quickly as possible without regard if they're a good fit or not, okay? And you want to obviously avoid that process because you may be a victim in the process of joining an agency where they promised anything and everything to get you on board, but it was ended up not being a good deal, right? So where do we go with this? Well, you need to ask them some questions, and what questions you ask. Look at, if you put in Google or YouTube and you put in things like David DeFord, how to join the best agency, David DeFord, multi-level marketing pyramid schemes. You'll see a lot of content I've written that will kind of give you some deeper advice on walking through this process. But you want to be quizzing the agencies on things like, how do commissions work? Why should I work for you instead of Family First Life or Symmetry Financial or DeFord Insurance Group, whatever that may be, and put them on the spot. More importantly, you should be seeing and trying to read through the lines of how they respond. So what I mean by this is that sometimes it's not what they say, it's how they say it. We teach this in sales, right? You can say something in a way that sounds a lot less offensive because of how you said it, right? Likewise, you can pick up on the intentions and the feelings of how that person responds based on how they respond, right? If they're annoyed, if they're short with you when you ask these kind of questions like, why would I work with your agency instead of another? If they're not supportive of you, if they're frustrated by you, they treat you poorly, what does that tell you about them being put on the spot? Maybe it tells you they're not comfortable. Maybe they feel, I don't know, like they're vulnerable, that they don't have the best setup. They should be able to confidently answer that. And likewise, they should welcome these kind of questions, because that is the in my opinion, it's the primer that somebody's taken the time and care that wants to join a good agency for life, okay? And when you react to this stuff as an agency that mass recruits in a negative fashion, I think that it even tells you everything you need to know as a new agent thinking about joining when they push back and cut you off and disrespect you. If you get that, guys, run as far away as possible. That is not a good sign, okay? But that's necessary because a lot of these agencies will tell you, any BS they can to let you join, to get you to join, okay? So you have to vet them. Make sense? And then one other thing I'll suggest here, if at all possible, always ask for references of agents who are happy working at not the major agency, because a lot of these are very large organizations, and the experience really in the insurance sales business comes down to your direct upline, the sub-agency you're part of, okay? There's a distinct culture within sub-agencies. And when you're looking, let's say, at a big organization, you need to be asking, so can you give me 3 references of people that work directly with you, not somewhere else, okay? And again, I have agents every week that ask me for that. I have no problem sending them referrals to some of my agents. Maybe that's Anthony, maybe it's John, maybe it's Kenny or Ethan or Eric. Like, I can name off, those are just top producers off the top of my head that I just say, here's some emails. If you'd like to talk to them, shoot them an email. And you say whatever you want, you ask whatever you want. I don't try to butt in on the conversation because I've got enough confidence that the quality of my work stands for itself. And I'm happy to show them that. And when you have references, it gives you a way to cut through the BS. Like, okay, you've got the best agency ever. Prove it. Again, people who are proud of their product are going to happily send references. For example, I had somebody pitch me on Instagram to do some kind of social media marketing on Instagram to boost up potential agent applicants. And they had this guy who was a great guy on the phone. He had a great presence. I mean, just solid salesperson. And I said, everything sounds great, man. Price, I can afford the price. Just send me 3 references and I'll be happy to do business with you. He said, well, him and Han, it's private stuff. We don't share that stuff. And it's all kind of what it is. And I'm like, well, okay, sorry, bye. And he couldn't produce references. I told him I would do business if he could, and he didn't. And that spoke volumes. Because when you run a business based off of results, and you go out and claim to the world you can get them, but you can't deliver, what does that say about you, right? So the point is, if you're looking for an agency, mine, somebody else's, no matter what, ask for references. There is no harm, no foul in doing that. And it gives you this inside look to validate if the claims they are making about being as good as they are actually true, okay? And you really, in some ways, you don't really want the front man or the pitch man, the marketer, giving you the pitch, you really want to see what their agents have to say, right? Because that's kind of like the outcome of the pitch. Like, does what they say actually manifest? And when you talk to somebody who actually has manifested what the marketer says, or the recruiter or the agency owner, that's a great sign that, hey, man, they do what they say they're going to do. But if it's different than that, again, allows you to vet this process that much more. Very, very, very important. Okay. So that's just step one here. We got 6 more to go. But this is all really important stuff that so many agents who fail wish they would have done, which is why we got to go into detail about it. Okay, number 2. Prepare to pay the price for success. This is the one I've been looking forward to. It's interesting. I've been in the business since 2011. I failed in 2012. I came home the day I failed to see my bank account. I had $95 in it. My wife was completely against selling insurance. She thought it was like major eye roll, waste of time. And now I had to go upstairs and walk into my house and admit that she was right. The worst thing a husband can ever do or have to live through. It's admitting the wife was right. Shouldn't have done it. And I failed, right? So it was a pretty low point in my life. And but what I've discovered over time, and reading autobiographies of successful people, business people, successful just people in general, is that most people in life that achieve massive success fail at some point in their life. They have low points in their life. And many times it happens very early on. I remember reading from a book from Dan Kennedy, who was kind of an old school marketer from the 90s and early 2000s, that one of the most common trait of a millionaire, self-made millionaire, is a lot of them had bankruptcies prior to that. So they all failed, right? Failure is a part of success. And the point I'm saying here is that I think there is a price to pay to be successful in life. And I guess I have perspective now. I'm not Mr. Guru and been around years and stuff, but I'm 37 now, so I kind of lived through a good bit of this business to develop some perspective. And the thing that I've realized that I've seen others like Gary Vaynerchuk talk about, I sacrificed to get where I'm at in my life, which is substantial income, but not just money, but freedom, time with my family, leisurely pursuits, the things that I think all of us want, I've accomplished. But I really sacrificed my 20s to get it into my 30s, really my early to mid 30s, so even more than my 20s. And throughout all my 20s, all the kids I went to school with at Boston University, they got corporate America jobs, making high 5 figures, low 6 figures, climbing the corporate ladder. And I just spent my 5 years just grinding it out in the gym, trying to build a personal training gym. Then that collapsed and failed. Then I got in the final expense. I'm hustling burial insurance to, low-income people. Nothing, no sex appeal there. Just to fail out a second time right after my personal training gym failed, and then grinded it out over the next couple of years to get back to break even, paying off all my debt, and really, really taking off now in my 9th, 10th, and 11th year. Like the last 2 years have been incredible. But my point is, there's a price to pay for this. And it becomes clear to me now as I coach agents and bring them up into the business that there's this perspective that all of this happens really quick. That you get into this business and the money's there's just a big pile of money, and there is in a sense, but it's just waiting for you to go pick it up. It's not that easy. Not for most people who make it long term. I think you should have some traction pretty quick in this business. But for a lot of people who sustainably stay in this business longer than a flash in the pan for a year or less, they eat shit. Sorry, it's true. For a long time. They have a couple of rough years. And once they realize, they keep going and they never quit. And they start to get traction. They stop repeating those same mistakes. And they get to the point where they develop the skill set over many years and are now making more money than their peers. And with that ability to make money, now have this fantastic business, of which many eventually migrate into. Some do agency building, but a lot of people do Medicare, and they start building residual income, and now they make great income, but they also have the ability to not work all the time. But all of this, and the point I'm saying is, doesn't happen overnight. Okay, so if you're getting into this business and you want success, understand I'm I'm not the best in this business. I'm good, but I'm not the best. But it took me, through my entrepreneurial efforts, really to my 10 years till I started getting real success, significant success. And then really in my mid-30s, where it really ramped up, right? And that's probably not going to be, hopefully not as long as me. But understand there's that price you got to pay to get into this business, that it won't happen instantly, that you're going to have internal strife with the people you love the most. My wife wasn't on board with me for a long time. She always used to say, go work at TVA, which is Tennessee Valley Authority. You can make 6 figures a year, take 6 weeks off, have great benefits. Why are you doing the struggle, right? Like, there's always going to be those people in your ear that doubt you. You know, you're going to be on your own to some extent, okay? You're starting a business. Every business owner feels this way, okay? A couple of things, too, I want to clarify with this point. Success in insurance sales is front-loaded at time, effort, and emotional mental energy, okay? This stuff is the hardest in your first month, 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months, okay? It gets easier after the first year, but it's the absolute hardest in that first year. That's where everything is stacked up against you. Your lack of skill, your lack of experience, the competition that's out there, right? The emotional turmoil that you will experience dealing with lapses, dealing with people that reject you. It's a whole new experience, and to learn this business is very overwhelming, okay? But if you just survive and you keep applying yourself to the business, can't promise you success, but what I've seen time and again is that more and more people start to get it. They start to overcome the frustrations. And it's nice because some of that back quarter of life insurance, unadvanced income starts to pay off, so that kind of takes some stress off of you too. And you start to get some upside and some upside inflection. And the point is, over time, what tends to happen is this business becomes predictable, it becomes normal, and it even becomes a little boring because you've done it all before. I mean, at the end of my full-time career, I was just a machine processing appointments. I've had seen thousands of people up to that point. I already knew the business. It was just rinse and repeat. Very uncreative, very boring. But you only get to that point after you've done tons of reps under the bar. You put a lot of time on the mat, okay? And it will get to that point. And I don't say boring disparagingly, but the point is like it's not nearly as stressful when you've been through all sorts of derivations of different prospects and their issues and the objections. You just know what to do automatically. But you earn that process through sticking to the business. And you've got to pay that price of the turmoil, the frustration, the effort, and the time in those first couple of years to get to that point where the potential to make 6 figures is very real and the stress level to do it is very low. And so what I would ask you here, straight talk, is what are you going to sacrifice to get into this business, okay? There is always a sacrifice of something. I'll admit, my sacrifice personally getting into the insurance business was I wasn't around my house when my son was born. Well, I mean, I was, but I just wasn't there. You know, I was like there, but not there. I was working 6 days a week. My wife generally stayed home. That's kind of a core principle. I always wanted my wife to be a homemaker, have an active life with my children, and I was just going to go be the slave working all the time. It's how we do it. But I wasn't there to see my son really until the last couple of years. Likewise with my twin girls. When they were born, I went back to work. After the weekend they were born, I was back in the field full time. You know, and there's definitely some regrets there. There was definitely strain on some level in the marriage. Nothing couldn't overcome. But it's not like this is all just like, I'm just walk out here and start making money. It's just that easy, right? It's not that easy. It's a business, and it's hard, and it's going to require some sacrifice. I love jiu-jitsu. You guys see the shirt I'm wearing, right? I quit jiu-jitsu part in part because I just didn't have the time. I love lifting weights in the gym. I gave all that up so I could focus my entire emotional energy on personal success in business. And I didn't have time for friendships. Okay, I don't want to make this too Debbie Downer over here, but I just want to let you know what I sacrificed, what I gave up, right? I didn't go on vacations till 6 or 7 years into the business. Why? Because, well, money was tight. and I was dedicating it towards a business, a dream. So my point again is there's going to be a price in your life you got to pay. What's it going to be? Are you prepared to pay it and prepared to stick with paying it? Because it usually isn't one-time transaction. It's a constant struggle that you got to deal with. I hope that you don't have to pay a price, but I also don't want to lie to you either. Most people in life who do very well pay a price to achieve success. Are you ready to pay it? All right. 2 out of 7. Let's keep going here. And let me check the chat. All right. Very good. Excellent. Thank you guys. Danielle, Yvette, Fahim, Chris, thank you very much. Let's keep going. All right. Number 3 here. Steps to success in selling insurance. You need to understand the principle of specialization versus generalization. In other words, specializing in one product trumps, as a new agent, generalizing in a multitude of products. So if you want success, and this is what I've seen, this is just anecdotal, but the most successful agents I have seen in their first year or two are the ones that picked one product and tripled down on becoming the best they could possibly be in that one product specialty, okay? And those are the ones that make convention. Those are the ones that make the most income the fastest. Whereas the people who try to be everything to everybody get into this like deadly cycle of shiny object syndrome. They start selling final expense, realize that, yeah, prospects suck, okay, sometimes. And then they think, oh, the rainbow, the pot of gold's over there by mortgage protection. So they go to mortgage protection. And there's something about that they don't like. And then they're like, bank on yourself or infinity banking or whatever. And they do that. Big money, yeah. And they bounce around and they don't ever develop this in-depth, deep skill set to be successful because they never went through the hard stuff. They just avoided pain and just looked for the pleasure of some new stimulus. And they've arrived at a point many years as experienced, but never really gaining wisdom of the business, much less much money. I had an agent who worked for me locally, good guy, and capacity, still think this way, to be very successful. But he was a bouncer, he's Mr. Ping Pong, to jump between this opportunity, that opportunity, between like 5 different times in 2 years. And prior to that, he had did the same thing. He's never done anything of success in the business because he couldn't understand the importance of specialization and sticking with one thing and getting good at it. Again, why is this important? Well, number one of the reasons why this is important is because this business is overwhelming. People like me, Cody Askins, Doug Massey, Jason Final Expense, people that you guys are watching, the FFL people, like they make this business look easy because they're pros at it. They've been doing it forever, okay? But you have to understand the pros by nature make it look easy. But that doesn't mean it actually is. They've arrived at that perspective of looking easy because they've seen and experienced traction and success for many, many years. And then what ends up happening is you kind of don't quite understand the overwhelming capability or overwhelming nature of this business because you're paying attention to people, yeah, that are influencers that do well, but pay the price, right? You don't see that whole backstory that we just kind of talked about. So what will happen to you if you haven't got started is as you get into the business with just even one product, everything is way overwhelming more than you think it is. Taking your script and actually doing it in front of a prospect, totally different than practicing it on your dog, right? Learning your carriers in the comfort of your own home without a prospect seeming frustrated, impatient, etc. is a different skill set than doing it in real life, right? And so what happens is the application of what you learn, as simple as it's made to be, which good training should be simple, is massively more complex in a live, think-on-your-feet type of environment. Now imagine adding in to, say, something like final expense, Medicare, or annuities as a new agent, or some other product. You may think, well, that just doubles the difficulty. No, it exponentializes the difficulty because now you've got to worry about not just what to think about final expense, but also about Medicare. And then you got to worry about all the technical aspects of Medicare, as well as final expense. And you got to worry about the client and their situation, their patience level, and juggle all of this stuff. And what will end up happening if you go the generalization route, many times as a new agent, it's so overwhelming, you just quit. There's too much to know, There's too much responsibility, and many times these agents never even get out the door to do the first appointment because they're just so overwhelmed. Again, so this is why the solution, like what we do at DeFord Insurance Group, is to focus on one particular product. Focus on one strategy. Why? Because there's plenty of prospects if you pick the right strategy, like final expense or Medicare, and it's overwhelming just doing one thing. Why make it even more overwhelming? And again, there's this effect, like I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. For example, 70% of people think they have above average driving skill set, right? Well, that's statistically impossible in actuality, right? The average means half are better and half are worse, but 70%. So we think that we can handle this because many people coming into this business are optimists, right? They look for the best perspective to have on things, and they're good people that want to take on, responsibility. But again, what happens is everybody kind of overcompensates their actual ability to learn this stuff. And how it looks on the outside, I assure you, if you're brand new, it's going to be totally different than how it actually pans out, as we've kind of talked about. So the takeaway all of this is, in my experience, the success and ability to have massive success in selling insurance largely stems on being a specialist, first of all. Now, I'm not saying you can't cross-sell. I'm not saying that you can't add more product lines later. But many of those people who are doing that right now didn't start doing it all. They worked their way up to that point through trial and error and through experience and developing the necessary wisdom to get to that point to do this. Does it make sense, everybody? So give yourself the best chance, in my opinion, and stick to one product. Find the product that's a good fit for you. So a couple of things here. Let's see what else here. Beware the peril of overwhelm. Talked about that. Shiny object syndrome and the grass is greener syndrome. Yeah, this is kind of like my special little pet issue I always like to bring up. We live in a society, ladies and gentlemen, where we are under constant duress psychologically. It is really hard to be committed to these days, especially to a business. Why? Because as soon as you come onto YouTube, what you're going to see from me as you watch my videos is you're going to have suggested videos for other YouTubers that do insurance sales, which is fine. And they're going to say things not exactly the same as I do. They have their own set of opinions that they've developed through wisdom. And there's this constant exposure to different thoughts, ideas, and ways of doing things. And I'm not saying that diversity of opinion is a good thing, but there's an illusion that comes with choice. There's an illusion that comes with the opportunity to pick and choose how you do this business. Again, too much choice is bad. Why? Because too many choices leads to confusion. Should I work with A, B, or X, Y, and Z organization? I don't know. This is good or that's good. And what ends up happening is it's hard to start when there's too many choices. And where it really gets perilous is it's hard to sometimes commit to your original decision if you haven't had this conversation, because you will run up against distress and frustration. It's normal, even in the perfect agency. But what ends up happening is that you get to this point where it's like, well, maybe I should switch gears and go to another agency. Well, that looks good over there. Oh, this sucks. Yeah, I'm doing. And sometimes that's fine. Trust me. Some of you are in MLM pyramid scheme type of organizations. That's okay. Okay. But I'm talking about where things are generally set up pretty well. This temptation to bounce around as a solution is sometimes not always good. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. And there's a great book called, what is it called? It'll come to me in a minute. Growing Rich, I think. It's by the guy who started American Continental, somebody in the chat, Randall Baskin. If you can find that book, buy it. It's very hard to get. It's about a gentleman who started American Continental, a good old boy in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, grew up out in the country, tin roof, dirt floors. Mom was bipolar, dad was a drunk. Just terrible childhood. Went on and got a job selling insurance. He worked at a glass manufacturer. And my point in bringing this up, he created American Continental. He's fabulously wealthy. He's older, I think in his late 80s now. Eventually sold it to Genworth, I think, at some point. Great story. Rags to Riches story. It's one of my favorite. And highly recommend reading it if you can get it. But the thing that struck me as interesting is that when he got into the insurance business, he didn't have ABC company telling you they're the best ever, DeFord Insurance Group telling you they're the best ever, some other company saying they're the best ever. He didn't have any of that. It was one agency in town that said, come on down for a great insurance sales opportunity, great sales opportunity. That was the only option he had to sell insurance. And that restriction of options didn't confuse him or concern him. He just came in, wanted a job, and was going to follow the process of whatever job they gave him, right? So I think there was some beauty in that we kind of lost now as we've gotten into the internet age, where there's just so many new opportunities available to them. So where am I going with all this? One of the things, again, this goes back to these fundamental principles of success earlier on. If you do your due diligence and you're thoughtful about getting into this business from the beginning, then I think what will happen by default is that your commitment level to that decision is going to be a lot higher, right? Because you want to front load the decision-making process as soon as possible and add time to it to make sure that you do a well enough investigative analysis on which agency is going to be best for you. Because if you don't do this stuff, this whole kind of idea of the illusion of choice plays into you, and it gets you messed up in the head sometimes, or you go through this shiny object syndrome process we talked about earlier. One of the things that I think works, which is really good to consider, and this is what you should be doing after you do this process, is you need to actually think about putting blinders on, okay, and focusing on the one thing that you are now committed to. This is, again, the inability to completely focus in on that decision and the commitment you make is what deters a lot of people from success. I mean, think about it. Like, I am completely committed to insurance sales. It's all I do. I'm very successful in the insurance game now. I paid my price to be successful. What I haven't been successful in, but I've wanted to dip my toe in, is real estate or Bitcoin, right? And a lot of you out there are doing that plus insurance. And I'm not saying that you can't handle it both, but maybe you should look at people who are really successful, and you find a lot of them don't know anything about that stuff. But the one thing they know about is their particular insurance market, and they're fabulously successful, okay? So I think that goes to show you, hopefully, the point that making a decision to be completely committed, which is absolutely necessary for profound success, means you're going to say no to everything else, a lot of things. Yeah, I'm saying yes to insurance, but I'm saying no to Bitcoin. I'm saying no to the real estate market the last couple of years that's been very successful for people who's been in it. And it's like, it's like the FOMO effect, but that's what's required. That's what I've learned through being in this business. You got to be focused if you want to have profound success. Because if you disseminate your focus on other things, it's like cross-selling too soon. You're going to just disseminate your focus. You're not going to get to that deep level of understanding and action you're able to take. And you might find you're not going to be as successful as you would be having been all in. Cool. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Mark Taylor. Excellent book, Growing Rich, Success in Business by Randall Baskin. That's right. Please buy that book if you can find it. All right, let's keep going. Halfway there. I might get to questions here. All right. Number 4, now let's talk about some actual actions. A lot of this stuff is just mindset, approach to the business. Very important stuff as a new agent to understand. The next thing I want to talk about here is the one fundamental law of insurance. And there's only 3 things in insurance. This is an old saying. It's pretty true. There's only 3 things that you should really be concerned with in the insurance business. It's see the people, and wait for it. Number 3, see the people. This is a business about getting in front of prospects in person or on the phone or remotely on Zoom if your business model incorporates that. It is ultimately a person-to-person business. This is a business about getting in front of not just a handful of people, but a good number of people every week. It is an activity-oriented business. Without seeing people, you don't have a business. Without having a prospecting program, whether it's paid leads, referrals, cold calling, whatever, you don't have an insurance business. You cannot, therefore, run an insurance business without people to see. So it's critical. If you want to have success in selling insurance, you got to see the people. You have to see the people, okay? And it's even more important, I would say, in this technological and personal age that we're in. People want, believe it or not, to talk to insurance people. There is a lot of money, Wall Street money, that is invested in these programs to eliminate the insurance agent. I mean, think about the technological process that has happened across the gamut in retail. Retail has been murdered, if to be frank with you, because Amazon has removed the requirement to show up somewhere and go to a store and buy and have help and clerks and retail floor people to help you out. We've seen this in other businesses, Carvana in the car business, but we really haven't seen this pick up to a large level in the insurance business, where most of the business still is contracted by a field force of agents in person or over the phone. Now, why is that the case? I think the case is because this is, again, a fundamental thing to remember about insurance, and it's very nature of how it's sold. Life insurance, really insurance across the board, is sold. It's not bought. People don't go to the store to buy insurance. So what a lot of these Wall Street types don't understand is that it takes a person to get in front of a person, especially products like life insurance, to have a conversation with them, to get them to see the light, to see the hearse backed up against the front porch, that they're going to die and they better be prepared. And that urgency development is what's required. That really only comes about by a personal interaction over the phone or in person to then get that person to commit and buy. Again, this is a business. This is a product that people want, but they want it when they really can't get it anymore. So therefore, you have to sell it to them. And really, the only way that that's done still in large percentages is by a field force of agents, okay? So again, where am I going with this? This isn't a business yet, perhaps one day, where you can just feed a bunch of Facebook traffic into a system to automatically sell for you. No, it's not. This is a business that still operates by a fundamental traditional approach to selling, figuring out what the person wants and convincing them to buy, okay? So understand, numbers are everything. This is an activity-related business, and it's not really going to change in any large capacity anytime soon. A couple of things that are important to remember about the see the people concept. Number one, the magic number 15. Okay, now what is this? So I read a book. I forget which one it's up there on the bookshelf behind me. Really, the thing you got to understand is this is a business where there's safety in numbers. If you want to have massive success in the insurance business, you have to see a lot of people, not just a few. Like Mark's got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people dancing around. That's too few, even part-time. If I'm full-time in the business, I want to conduct 15 completed appointments in person and closer to 20 completed appointments if I'm remote or over the phone. That's a lot of appointments to complete every week. But when you have that kind of activity added into the mix, your opportunities for sales are much more magnified. And what I have seen anecdotally, not just myself, but other agents that have written books that have, many decades ago, is as you hit 15 plus appointments a week, the income return stabilizes. The business becomes more predictable. The stress level, therefore, goes down. You actually perform better because you're not desperate to make every single sale off of every presentation you run. And for a lot of people, it becomes much more enjoyable, and certainly the income opportunity rises that much more. So one of the things I will highly stress to all of you getting involved in this business, if you're doing it now or if you're going to do it, you need to rapidly, now if you're not, I'll say as a side, if you're not part-time, if you're part-time, a little different, but if you're getting into this full-time, you need to run 15 appointments. And when I say appointments completed, not 15 and 5 show, I want you to see 15 people. I want you to pitch 15 people every week. If you're not going to do that, this business will remain frustrating up to that point for a lot of you, okay? So ask yourself, how am I going to run 15 appointments a week? Dave says it. He's been doing it since 2011. He's taught people to do the same thing. Maybe there's something to it, and Dave didn't invent it. He stole it from some other guy who wrote a book about it decades ago. Maybe there's something to it. You need to figure out how to run that many appointments a week, okay? Because when you do that, there's safety in numbers. The business becomes less stressful, okay? And I'll say this, on a scaled up basis, this is kind of the secret when running 30 to 40 appointments a week. It's actually less stressful even than at 15 appointments a week, because at 30 to 40 appointments, there's so much business out there. And you're going to run across it. You're going to sell it. And because you're doing so much more volume, there's a sense of being able to cover your costs a lot easier, especially if you're in a paid program. So actually, it's still even more true as you scale above and beyond 15 appointments. But at a minimum, That's where I want my full-time guys that I recruit and join my agency to do, is 15 completed appointments a week. All right, number 5, fundamental law of insurance. Number 2, success requires a track to run on. Okay? What do I mean by a track to run on? You should not get into this business and invent the sales process. The beautiful thing about insurance sales, ladies and gentlemen, it's boring, it's old, it's predictable. We know what works, we know what doesn't work. And especially if you join an agency that is specializing in a particular strategy and they extol their training programs and their marketing programs, they've already figured out what works. And I think a very fundamental even point to experience massive success, no matter what it is you're selling, is just figure out what the blueprint of success is, and that's already been proven, and just copy and paste. Success leaves clues, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to come into the insurance business and make it all up on the spot. It's already been done, most likely. And you just have to have the humility and the desire to find the person in the business you want to emulate that has been able to produce success and copy and paste. It's really, in a sense, that simple. You don't have to be creative here. You can be really boring and uncreative and just have the wherewithal to just do what works. And your likelihood of success is going to go up that much more. And again, what are you looking for in these kind of arrangements? You're looking for a proven sales system that takes a stranger and turns them into a qualified prospect, that has an objective process to make that happen, that somebody can not only just give you a script, but can teach you why it works, how it works, that can pinpoint things that you can improve upon, that can listen to you and coach you and develop you as an agent that has that capability, but also comes with a prospecting system that is, again, vetted and already proven, that you can just buy into or self-generate if it's some kind of like referral or cold system, and just duplicate that process. That is what you're looking for. Part of that too is kind of talking about how to implement the system. The one thing I want to stress here is that this is a business, and I want you to think about this for a second. Is this a business that, what's more important? Is it more important to learn the carriers, the underwriting process, or is it more important to learn the sales process, the capability to connect with a stranger and convert them into a buyer? I will contend that it's far more important to learn how to connect and close your prospects than it is the products that you sell. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's not the product that sells, it's you. You are the X factor. If you want to have massive success selling insurance, you've got to understand that you are the driver to convince them to buy or not, based on your interaction and their decision at the end of the call to decide if they're going to trust you and thus move forward. So spending your time on learning the script, performing the script, being able to answer knee-jerk objections at the end of a call, beginning of a call, at the door, appointment setting if you're face-to-face, closing objections, getting really good at that, and pre-qualifying is really important. Spending the time to get good at that is way more important than knowing every little nuance in a carrier underwriting setup, okay? There should be resources at your agency to help assist you with that. There are great tools out there like insurancetoolkits.com that you can spend $30-40 a month and plug this information in to get an output of the underwriting. Don't spend your time being a product nerd, okay? Like, that's not a good use of your time. Take it from me. I recruit agents, kind of know this thing. What you need to spend your time doing is getting good at connecting with the prospect, getting good at understanding how to connect with the prospect and convincing them to give their money to you, okay? And of course, the way that you do this is, again, read, rehearse, practice, record, and review your script. And that gets to point number 6. A fundamental thing about selling insurance is a commitment to what's called Kaizen. Do y'all know what Kaizen is? Ever heard of this term? This is a supply management term. It's a Japanese word, and essentially means continuous improvement. The idea of always continuously improving the processes in your business and always looking for opportunities to better yourself. You need to have this mindset of getting into this business that you don't know everything. You need to humble yourself and have humility. You need to have an open mind to looking at ways that you can fix the things that are the biggest things that are wrong as quickly as possible, but also have an open mind to refining the little things that need to be refined so that you can ultimately add up all these refinements to increase your close rate to help more people with more policies and to therefore make more money for you, okay? And again, what is the best way to continuously improve? You may be wondering, well, how can I apply this in a way that I can rapidly see success? Well, insurance sales is a performance activity, right? And other activities that are performance-based are sports, right? Think of football. What is the number one thing that professional football teams do to improve their capability on the field? Well, there's a lot of things they do, but one of the things that stick out for me is they watch their tapes of themselves playing the plays. They watch their competition playing their plays. They review and analyze what happened in real life as a team and figure out from there what they're going to do to improve. And likewise, one of the best things you can do that, frankly, nobody does, like probably 10% or less of the agent population will do this. Why, I don't know, but it's so profoundly important that it needs to be 100%. You need to record yourself. Whether that's recording a practice presentation or you're practicing with your spouse, or better yet, a real-life presentation, you need to be listening to what the thing actually sounds like in a third-party capacity. Why? Because what you say on the spot, in the line of fire, while you think on your feet, sounds dramatically different as you're doing it versus how it sounds on recording. And you really don't know what you're doing until you listen to what it is that you're saying. Again, in a recorded environment, not under the gun during an actual sales presentation. It's remarkable how much growth potential there is to maximize your success in the insurance business by simply just listening to your tapes of how you set appointments, door knock, present, close. The first thing you'll probably experience is how cringy it sounds. Listening to yourself talk. Trust me, I know. I never like to listen to myself either. But a curious thing happened when I started to. I realized I wasn't doing some of the fundamentals of this business. I wasn't closing appropriately. I wasn't going in depth and pre-qualifying as I should as a final expense agent. And it showed me this opportunity to really improve what I thought was already pretty good. And the sooner you start recording yourself and getting used to this Kaizen, this opportunity for Kaizen, this continuous improvement, the more likely you're going to rapidly develop yourself as an agent faster than the person who doesn't want to do this because they're silly. Unfortunately, they feel silly about listening to themselves. And again, you don't have to send this to anybody, but it really is helpful if you have a mentor in your corner that will listen to this stuff and provide you perspective. This is what we do at DeFord Insurance Group. I always offer my agents that want to do this. I don't shame anybody to doing it, but I highly encourage it because listening to the tapes, whether it's a practice session, whether it's a real-life sales presentation, it just has profound capability to help those people that had the courage to send it in. And it gives you such an opportunity for growth you otherwise would never get. So I highly recommend a part of your process of being very successful in this business and striving for success is having the humility to listen to yourself on recording and look for the opportunity for improvement, because I assure you it's there. Last but not least, we've arrived at the end of our list, and we are how many minutes into this? 53 minutes, good Lord. There's a lot of content here to cover. It's a very important subject. Is that this business kind of goes back to the first point. This is a marathon, not a sprint, okay? You should be getting traction in this business fairly quickly if it's a good fit for you. I always tell agents that join my agency, you should be making money in your first week. You should be making sales in your first week. And if you're not, and you've done everything possible to study, learn, and run appointments, it's probably not the right business for you. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful overnight. It just means that if you're making sales in your first week, you've got the stuff, I think. You're kind of the diamond in the rough to see success over the long haul. You at least have a higher odds of success. So what you need to be thinking about is that this is a business model that takes years to run. Hopefully my experience and my story kind of sold that to you. I gave my 20s away for my success in my 30s. But you need to be thinking about not just what are you going to do next week, but what are you going to do in the next year? What's your goals the next 5 years, next 10 years? You need to be thinking big and have a big perspective on what kind of goals you want to accomplish. For example, one of the things we do at DeFord Insurance Group is we use final expense, and this is our strategy, kind of our 5-year strategy. We use final expense as an avenue or a tool to get into the insurance business for all sorts of reasons. It's a great product to start with, but to eventually build our way into Medicare. And the reason why is because Medicare is just such a superior product as far as income earning capability, not just in top level income, but in passivity. You can earn a residual lifetime income with Medicare, whereas you can't really do that with any other products to the same scalability as Medicare. And I can tell you and attest personally, as somebody who's built an agency, this business is a beautiful thing when you can walk away from it for a month and still make money and do other things besides work, like a long vacation, spend time with family, other things in life that you would like to pursue. And I think that's what I certainly encourage all my agents to think about, because it's an important goal to have, to make good money, but not just for the sake of making money, but to use it as a tool, as it's a means to an end, to have something more than just an 80-hour grinded out type of job where you have no time to actually enjoy yourself, right? So we use that over a 5-year plan. And what I find is we've incorporated this 5-year plan strategy with my agency, it really has I think, inspired my people more than just, hey, come on in and they'll sell final expense. This is, I think, kind of the shortcoming with a lot of the other competition is, they talk about selling just like life insurance product, but there's no real long-term perspective. And they may encourage you to sell in an agency or build an agency, and that's great, but that's certainly not for everybody. And there is tremendous chargeback peril that nobody really talks about in this business, about building an agency and being responsible for roll-up debt, if an agent doesn't pay it off. And so it's not really for everybody, and the success rate's lower, in my opinion, than Medicare. So for us, that's what we talk about, and I find that the quality of the agent has gone up, and certainly their kind of perspective has too. They're not just here to do it for a week and quit. They have a longer-term vision, and they see what's possible, and they're more committed. So think about having those long-term goals. Think bigger, and that's likely going to inspire you that much more to be successful. Set process goals, not results goals. Let me talk about why. So what's a result goal? I want to make $100,000 a year. Don't we all, right? But the problem with that is that it's far off. It's in the future. And if you basically get to the core of what results come from, it's from the activity of picking the phone up, door knocking, and running appointments, right? So I think it's more of over a short-term basis. One of the best advice I could give you guys out there, if you're thinking in goals, and you should be if you're not, is to set yourself up on an income goal for sure, but break it down into a daily goal. How many doors do you have to knock a day, or how many calls do you have to make a day? And extrapolating that over the course of many months to a year to hit the annual income goal that you want. And what happens in this business is why day-to-day results vary. Over the course of longer times, like month to month, there's a level of predictability to it. The randomness tends to disappear. And what you realize is, well, if I put in at least the minimum amount of effort, we know that over time, all of that added up will allow me to hit my ultimate income goal. And so it becomes a lot better if you think about goals. It's helped me a lot to think about goals like, I'm in the gym. I'd love to bench press 405 pounds, right? I hit 300 the other day. I feel pretty good about that. But I don't get too hung up on putting an absolute deadline year based on 405, right? It might be a couple of years in the future. But what I do focus on is how can I move the bar up, or I should say the weight up, on a smaller basis every workout, or increase my volume, or increase my sets. How can I get small micro progression out of every training day? Because I know over time, all added up, it will eventually result in hitting the 405 bench, right? So likewise, I contest to you or suggest to you, think about how you can hit your activity goals on a daily basis and achieve them daily, because all of that will add up to that ultimate result goals. And I find that your emotional turmoil is a little bit less when you're thinking about the process-related goals, not the results production goals per se. Again, of course, easier said than done, right? We got to make sales. That's what pays the bills. So my point is, it will come if you do the process. And it won't come if you won't. So the process is the thing that matters. Focus on inputs, the process, not so much outputs. And then what you do if you get frustrated and think of quitting. Last little bit of advice, and I'm going to take some questions in the chat. If you want to throw your questions out there, throw them in the chat. Happy to do it. The last thing I'll say here, these are things, I spent a couple years ago reading a book a week and really just leveled up on the book reading. And it's something that's annoying me. I'm taking some steps to get back to doing that. Because that was kind of a fundamental year where things really started shifting exponentially better for me in my business. But one of the things I would suggest to you right now, absolutely right now in the business, is to, and this is from Tony Robbins. Tony is one thing I listen to Tony Robbins about. Read autobiographies of successful people, okay? Or famous people, whether they're in the insurance business or outside of the insurance business. And learn to read between the lines of what you're reading. First of all, there's some interesting things that you'll discover. Number one, like I mentioned earlier, all successful people have really hard beginnings. That's kind of a truism. They have difficulty, adversity. They don't know if this business is going to be for them, and they're going to stick into it. So this is a business by reading about and seeing other people who are successful, it makes this business a lot more, I won't say easier, but more capable of managing, okay? So a couple of books I can recommend to you, Growing Rich by Randall Baskin, absolutely important to read. I like the autobiography of Ben Franklin, excellent book. Ben Franklin's story is incredible. I'm sure there's other ones up here that I'm failing to remember. I got a lot up here, it's been a while. Any of Ben Feldman's books are really good too. Guinness World Book of Record holder. Anybody in the chat, if you got stories about successful people, throw them in. It's just, you will see a commonality and you'll see yourself kind of in those situations. And I think that helps the moral spirit continue this process of, especially frustrating in the beginning, to keep going despite the adversity. Okay. So if you just do those 7 things, you're going to be successful, right? Really, in all seriousness, I hope this gave you some perspective. I didn't expect this to go an hour, but I wanted to put this together because this business is awesome. It's really a wonderful business, and the tips here can make or break you if you follow them or don't. And I highly advise that you listen back to this, pick up on some perspective here, and I hope it makes a difference in your career. I want you to survive. I want you to thrive. This business is absolutely excellent and worth every second of the frustration that you got to deal with. Excellent. Okay, questions in the chat here real quick. How does a new final expense telesales agent keep lead costs low enough to justify doing business due to lower sales conversion in telesales? What is a reasonable cost per lead for telesales? A couple of strategies here. I wouldn't pay more than mid-teens per lead. There are vendors out there that will be less than $15, $16 a lead. That's kind of the high point that I would want for digital leads. You could also self-generate your own leads. I don't advise that if you're a new agent, particularly. It just adds more complexity to an otherwise complex business. And really, telesales, you got to understand, Jackson, is a volume-based business. It's all about doing a lot of leads. You can't do full-time at 50 leads for most agents. You got to do like 100 plus. The agents in my agency that do particularly well with telesales, when in an outbound fashion, are buying 100 plus leads or self-generating 100 plus leads a week, bar none. I have some software that can help me produce my own leads and only want to do telesales. So my question is, can your agency help me succeed without buying the leads that you suggest? What I would suggest, Jane, is an actual conversation with me, because I don't know what your software is. I'll give you my honest assessment. If I think that it's warranted, then I'll say yes. If I don't believe it will, I'll tell you no. I won't waste your time. Have you heard of Standard Life and Casualty paying 3-month advance because of my personal credit? Yeah. Advances are subject to your personal credit. They're a privilege, not a right. So it's going to be a function of your whatever is on your credit or lack thereof. You can protest it. You can have your upline, see if you can get it changed. But a lot of those advances are a function of your credit. Yeah, Mark, it is a rare book to find. I wish I could get a hold of him and get the rights to the book and then get it published. That would be cool. Is there any telesales advice or tricks you could give me in regards to keeping a comprehensible conversation going with the prospect while at the same time performing field underwriting. My take, and this is the thing, we may do things differently than you, but your prospect should be fine waiting for you as you underwrite. You should have by then gained the trust, likability from them. Nothing's perfect. You're going to have people who jump, right? But if this is happening with some recurrence, then there's an impatience. You haven't built trust or rapport with them suitably enough. And even if you get it on time, that doesn't mean that whole issue has been circumvented. It's still there. They're still going to have some pushback at the time when they have to make a decision. So I see it as more systemic to the original point was how can you connect to the client? How can you have them trust you? How can you get them committed? This is kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a cancer wound, right? There's a bigger problem here that needs to be fixed. See the people, see the people, see the people. I've been guilty of being a product nerd. Is it a way to avoid doing the work? It sure is. Thank you, Mark. That's 100% true. We call that avoidance behavior, right? If we all agree seeing the people is the primary directive or the prime directive of you as an agent, then doing other things is a distraction. And there are times to do things like be a product nerd, and that's when you can't see people, like in the morning or in the evening or in the weekends, if you don't work the weekends. So again, do work when it's time to do work. Make hay while the sun shines, as our farmer friends say. Sell insurance while the sun is up. Then worry about the details later when the sun is down. What is the general procedure to perform a policy replacement over the phone compliantly? Complete a replacement form, and that's it. Most of these carriers should have them integrated if they allow it. Hey, Neil, thanks for being here. Reading about other people who have had adversity and come out on the other side helps you make feel less alone. Absolutely. Because the nature of our business is solitary. Running a business, you are on an island. Nobody understands you. Nobody gets you. They're going to question your judgment. They're going to think you're silly. But I proved them wrong. And so can you. You just have to have that pig-headed discipline and determination to do what you in your heart feels is your destiny. That's what I had to do. And trust me, I had adversity on all sides. Say it, I shouldn't do it. Rhinoceros success. Rhinoceros, relatively advanced rhinocerology. Thank you. Yep. Yes, email me, future, and we'll see what we can do. But it's probably a credit issue. How do you handle Telesales situation when someone else actually filled out the lead form and is just doing a general fact-finding on behalf of a family member? Yeah, it's a tough situation, you know. I would try to get that person on the phone, but you're going to have a very invariably lower success rate with those kind of calls. Yeah, 100%, Chris. It's a great book. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today. I hope you got some value out of this. Please let me know in the chat if you liked it. And, of course, I will ask you, hit the thumbs up button if you think this content is share-worthy to other agents on YouTube who desperately need to hear this stuff. Just hit the thumbs up before you click off. I'd appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time today. We'll see you tomorrow. We got something going on. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about how to write 10 policies a week. That should be a great training. I already got the notes here. There's quite a bit here. So we'll see you then, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good one. Bye.